Hey, everybody, and welcome back.
What's going
I'm
on?
Jay,
And I'm Chris, the bird nerd.
and we
We
are
are the bird
the Bird
brains.
Brains.
A
Yeah,
little
we're
bit
getting
better.
better at
We're
this.
getting
Yeah, we're
it.
getting better at this. We'll just practice like 1,000 more times, and we'll have it
Still
down.
better not quit our daytime jobs, but
Yeah.
it's a little bit better.
All right. Well, today we're going to talk about canaries. Um,
Yeah, good old canaries.
yeah, the maybe I would say maybe the most famous bird, pound for pound. I mean, how many old cartoons and everything else have you seen of
Yeah,
canaries?
I would say probably them alongside with the budget year parakeets. Are like
Right up
if
there,
anybody who doesn't know birds knows, or at least has heard the name canary. So
and that they sing, right?
yeah.
So that's it. So, yep, they do sing, but there's a lot more going on to canaries than that. We did want to talk a little bit about the history of canaries. I'm a history nerd. So,
Nice.
canaries come from the Canary Islands, very original name. And in the Victorian era, so like the 1800s in England, they're imported to England as pet birds. They were pretty, they sing. People said, "Oh, this is cool. Let's bring them up here." And then that I would guess probably you could call that like early aviculture. So that's some of the first like in-home aviculture in the Western world. Now we could talk about society finches and everything, and I'm sure we'll do a society finch episode um, in the East. But in the West, canaries are probably the first commonly kept pet
Hmm.
bird. And
Yeah,
then there's the
especially with the
famous,
royals too. A lot of royalty kept them.
right? And then the famous canary in the coal mine. So it's actually, I'm sure you can find this on like a Wikipedia page for canaries. I didn't do my homework and check this, but I've seen pictures. So for those of you who've heard that expression, canary in the coal mine is in like the first sign that something's going wrong. In the old days, before they had like now, I'm sure in mines they have like, oxygen sensors and alarms and things. They used to not have all that. So they literally would have a canary in a cage, and birds are much more sensitive to fumes and drafts and lack of oxygen than humans. So they would all watch the canary in the cage, and if the canary passed out, they knew they had to skedaddle out of there. And I used to think they were just killing a lot of canaries. But it turns out they weren't. They had like oxygen bottles and things. So they would see the canary pass out and then they would, oh no, we got to get out of
Oh
here. But they
man.
would crank the oxygen on for the canary and revive them. So the canary was just like basically a coworker that'd be like, oh, Steve passed out. We got to get out of here.
Except they probably never came back to life after he passed out. Let's be
I
honest,
mean,
right?
they were, yeah, I don't know. I mean, yeah, how many times can you knock out a canary, like smother a canary before it comes back? But they were at least trying,
That's
which makes
awesome.
me feel a little bit better about it. But yeah, so
You know,
modern
I
canaries,
I forgot about that.
go ahead.
My dad, he was a coal miner back way before I was born. I'm gonna have to ask him if they used
If they
any
had canaries,
canaries down in the mines. So maybe he'll watch the podcast and he can chime in on a comment. Dad, I'm talking to you. All right, sorry.
I'll say hi. Hi, Chris's dad.
There you go. He was a bird nerd too. He's the one who got me into it, so it's his
Right.
fault that I'm here.
Yeah, right. Well, in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
But, but, okay, so types of canaries.
Oh boy. I mean, we've got a lot of canaries, and I've bred canaries quite a bit in the last few years, probably same amount of times with the Goulian finches. We had canaries a few times as a kid. Um, I think here, at least in the United States, the American singer is probably your most popular finch or canary, and they come in a whole bunch of different colors, yellows,
Yeah.
browns. Now you got the red factor tied into a lot of those breeding lines.
All
The
the I
gloss.
can't think of what they call it, but the ones that are marbled looking, I forget the actual correct name for it, but that are like the black and brown and tan all mixed in.
Oh yeah, what are? Give me. I'll probably.
Variegated,
There you go.
variegated.
Variegated. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So they've got those, and their song's a lot choppier than like your roller canaries and some of your European canaries that have a little bit more of a soft, like rolling song. The American singer is kind of a harder, choppier song. You've got your Gloucester canaries, you've got like your body types of canaries. So your fancies and your Gloucesters that are short and fat with the crest, and then it's like
Yeah, they have
your
the friar
yeah,
tuck. Yeah.
your frill canaries and things like that, and then you've got your color canaries, the red factors, your yellows, your whites, the variegated, and then you've got your singer canaries, right? All canaries sing, all male canaries sing, but they've got specific breeds for the singing piece, like the roller canaries or the five canaries that are a smaller canary but sing really beautiful. So a lot of different types of canaries
Yeah,
out there.
lizard.
Most,
There's the lizard
oh
canary.
yeah, lizard. Those
They're
ones are actually
cool. I
really
want
cool.
some. Yeah, I
Yeah,
want some. And then I saw we don't have them in the States. I'm pretty sure it's an animal welfare thing, but have you ever seen them? I know they have them in like France, Spain, and Italy. I think they call them a Frisian canary, but they're crazy looking. They have like a neck as long as their
hmm
body, and their head hangs over, and they can't even lift their head up. Yeah,
yeah,
so I mean, crazy canary variation, right? So, like we said, I
yeah.
mean, we're in year 200 plus of people keeping canaries, so
Right.
people
Yeah.
have gotten real weird with it.
Yeah, and they're usually pretty common, right? I mean, most of your pet stores will have them. Many of your local breeders, I mean, they're incredibly popular, like you said, Jay, worldwide. I mean, they're
Mhm.
along with like the parakeets, right? The budgeteer parakeets. Those are probably the two most common birds from the beginnings of times that people kept and started breeding and all the way to now. And that's why we have so many different variations and color forms and body types. But yeah, super common bird, tons of different types of canaries out there. So if you're looking for something more color wise, they're a great option. Singing wise, they're a great option. So there's a lot of benefits that come from the canaries and the different breeds.
Yep. I mean, yeah, I think I'm trying to think. I think I've seen them in PetSmart, right? So
hmm
PetSmart doesn't carry that many variations. Don't buy PetSmart birds for so many reasons. But yeah, I mean, they've got to be. I know budgies are number three in the United States for a pet, so it's dogs, cats, then budgies. But canaries have got to be the number two bird.
Yeah, I was going to say probably easily top three of the most popular birds that are kept within the United States for sure.
Right. And okay, so if there are that many canaries, then somebody's breeding them,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, and you know, the funny thing is canaries can be tricky when they breed. They're not hard to breed, but you've kind of got to follow some pretty consistent steps to keep them breeding well. Many times people will find when they first buy the canaries, and if they're a year old, usually that second year is when they're your best breeder, and for many reasons. But and then after that, there's kind of a certain schedule that they have to follow for them to become a good breeder the following year. And for canaries, they're dependent on a couple things. So, for example, your zebra finches, they don't really need a whole lot of circumstances or conditions to breed, and if you let them, they'll breed year round. Whereas your canaries, they're triggered by light on breeding and also by diet. And so when your canaries breed, usually it's early springtime. So when the days are starting to extend and you get more light in the day, that's their trigger. So if you have them in an outdoor aviary, every spring your canaries are going to come into breeding condition. If you have them enclosed, like in a house, an apartment room, in a shed like mine, and you got to artificially provide light, you have to extend the lighting period, and that brings them into breeding condition. And then it's the opposite, right? To get them out of breeding condition, you shorten the period of
Shrink it back
light,
down.
right? And then that triggers them to molt and to rest, and you'll find that your males don't sing as much during that time. Your females don't sing at all, right? And so they are very light sensitive. And so if you give them the same amount of light every day, usually they become worse breeders for you as the years go on because they're not synchronized in their annual cycle of breeding, molting, resting, breeding, right? And so food or light is really important for the canaries. And then your diets, your seeds when they come into breeding condition in the springtime, it's usually when you increase their egg food, right? And give them more vegetables and they like insects. My canaries will eat mealworms if I put them out there. They're not dependent on insect food,
Yeah,
but
I don't need them.
They are incredibly curious birds. They're always the first ones to go to any food that I put out in my aviary. 100%. They even beat the society finches, and my society finches will eat anything.
Yeah, I'd say
So
like I call them teacher birds. So
yeah,
canaries,
100%, absolutely.
shaft-tails, and societies are really, if you have a new food and you want all the birds to be eating it, your canary will help you. They would
Yeah,
try to eat anything.
which sometimes I would say can be tricky because if you provide live plants for your bird, like in your aviaries, things like that, you got to make sure that they're not poisonous because your canaries will be the first one to try them and eat them. It doesn't matter what kind of plant you put in there. So just
Yeah.
making sure they don't eat those. But yeah, so food and diet, or sorry, diet and lighting really are very important, and that molting cycle of the birds to get them into breeding. But once if you can get that synchronized up, they are good breeders and they produce solid clutches usually year to year. You've got good egg production. Usually fertility rates are very high with most of the breeds that I've found. Some of your size canaries, like your Gloucesters, you got to make sure they don't get too fat because they are a bigger bodied bird, and if they do, then your fertility rates are going to go down. That's some things that I issues that I ran into when I bred my Gloucesters is keeping them to a healthy size so that the fertility rates stay high. But for the most part, pretty easy breeders, and really enjoy breeding them and keeping them. So
Yeah, and for those of you who don't know and are just listening and trying to picture this, Gloucesters are the ones that have the funny haircut, like the bowl cut. So,
yeah, I
you
think I
know,
might. No, I don't have it. I do have a canary
they're
book right back there, but
they're I'll just say it this way: they're already funny looking enough, folks. They don't need to be fat too. So keep your Gloucesters trim. But yeah,
yeah,
I think that's all really good advice. I would also, I like breeding them because as far as a chick response, that, you know, what actually defines a finch is a short, stout beak, interrupted flight, which means like if you watch a finch or a canary or any, when we talk about finches, we're really talking about like ornamental finches. We're not necessarily talking about actual canaries, which are tend to be bigger, do some things differently, but they are by the scientific definition of finch, but they do things differently than a lot of the ornamental finches we breed. So they breed in an open top nest. So not a box or a dome nest, but an open top, like a bird nest. And then the chicks don't have like the feeding response I'm going to try to do with my hand for like a zebra finch. They just kind of sit there and twist their head. Well, a baby canary will
go
come
straight
way
up.
up, like a robin begging for
Uh-huh.
food. So
Yeah.
really cool to see. So you can watch the nest, and even if you can't see the babies, when mom or dad shows up, all of a sudden, whoop, it's like whack-a-mole, and all the heads come up. So I love
Yeah.
seeing that. And they grow so fast. It's so cool to
Yeah.
see. But so you breed them, you have more canaries, then you might run into a compatibility issue.
Yeah. Yeah. And um I will say, first of all, beginner bird keepers, canaries, I would say what sets them aside from the finch world, canaries can be really happy solitary. They are more of a solitary bird, meaning your male, if you have him alone, he's going to sing louder and harder because he is trying to attract a mate. But they do well individually. Your female canaries, you can put like two females together if you want, if you're not wanting to breed them. But typically, your canaries, they will fight with each other outside of breeding. So your males will fight, and when they're in breeding condition, they'll fight pretty aggressively. So
Yeah,
that's
they'll
some,
hurt or kill each
yeah,
other.
yeah, that's something to take note. I do have currently my males are together, but I have them in my big aviary, so they have space to get out. But even when I go outside and I see them, I see my males chasing each other. They're because we're coming into springtime. They're coming into breeding condition, so I'm going to have to separate them here pretty quick so that they don't hurt each other. So compatibility wise, making sure that if you have a smaller cage, I wouldn't have more than one canary. If you are breeding canaries and you get babies, make sure you have another cage to put those babies in because when they become adults, the males will become more aggressive with them, and will kind
Yeah.
of bully them around. The babies will kind of uh, they're kind of funny that they bicker a lot. So when I put their egg food in, like fresh egg food, they love, right? They're the first ones there, and they'll just have their mouths open, just jawing at each other. It's like they're screaming at each other's faces, and then they get over it and then they eat it, but yeah, they do better individually unless you are breeding them during the breeding season, and even sometimes breeding pairs don't get along. So that is one thing with the canaries, and is okay to have them in an individual cage outside of breeding and things like that. Male and female, they do okay. Whereas your finches, your zebra finches, yeah, get a pair for them at least, right? Because they are social birds.
Right.
They like that social interaction with each other. Canaries, like I said, I have them all together. I rarely see my canaries sitting together, males or females. They don't
Yeah.
interact with each other. They're not a social bird. And so something to take note there, especially the compatibility.
Yeah, I agree with
Yeah.
that. And the other thing I'll add too is the females. So another difference between them and the ornamental finches, the females do the nest building, and they're very competitive nest builders too. So,
Yes.
like right now, and one of them's going to come to you. I have too many canaries right now for my liking, but right now I have two females in with one of my males in the big aviary, and the females, I had one female that laid, and the eggs didn't end up hatching, and it wasn't because she did anything wrong. It was because the other female kept stealing nest material from her nest while she was sitting in it, and they would fight, every time. And by the end of it, she had like half a nest, and the eggs fell out.
Yeah.
So the when you're doing any kind of breeding, I think definitely my recommendation would be just that pair. And you can have other species around that don't mess with them. That's fine, but one male, one female canary for breeding. And if you want more canary information, Chris is much more of a canary expert than I am. Go to his channel. He has several
Yeah.
really good videos about breeding canaries.
Yeah, and with it coming into springtime here in the next couple months, that'll be a good portion of the videos I'll be putting out is setting up my canary pairs, breeding them, the process of the chicks
Mhm.
growing, things like that. And probably the last thing I'll say, Jay, compatibility wise, they are solitary birds by nature. When they are in breeding condition, one way to tell, and people always ask me, how do I know if my canaries are ready to breed? There's three ways. Your female will build a nest. And when she builds a nest, that's telling you and the male that she's ready to breed. Your males will sing nonstop. And usually your males will sing year round. And I said they don't sing as much when they're molting. Usually they don't. But come springtime, I mean, they're almost obnoxiously loud in their songs. And the male's like uncontrollably singing, especially if he's in front of a female. So that's usually a good sign. And then the third thing I will say, if you know you've got a good pair, is when you see them feeding each other. That's
Yeah,
about as social as your canaries will get. When they're breeding and they've paired up, your males will feed the females. And once they've accepted that, then you know that they're ready to breed, and that's usually when I throw them together. So just a few tips on the breeding and seeing when they're ready or not.
and if you're wondering what that looks like, it looks like they're making out. Looks like they're
Yeah,
kissing.
it
So if
really
you
does.
see
Yeah.
your canaries that normally don't hang out kissing, maybe it's time to breed
If
canaries.
if you see them fighting and chasing each other away, one of them's not ready. So
Right. All right. Well, that's canaries. You can find Chris on Instagram, YouTube, Threads, Bird Nerd. I think you're Bird Nerd 4 on Instagram.
yes,
Bird Nerd on everything.
YouTube.
We'll link that all below. And where can they find me? Throwing you a
Javieri.
curveball.
I know
Yeah.
you hit throw me a fast one. Yeah, Javieri on Instagram and YouTube and Threads. Right, you got the same
And
for all
Facebook.
three,
Yeah, it's all,
and
yeah,
Facebook. Yep.
it's
So
either the underscore Javiary or just the Javiary. Again, we'll link it all below. And, you can find, if you can find one of our socials, you can find them all, right?
yeah,
It's
for sure.
2024. If you need help, shoot me a DM.
If you know how
All
to do
right.
that, hopefully you do.
Yeah,
No, just kidding.
that's true. Yeah. Otherwise, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks, folks, and we'll catch you in the next one.
See you guys.